This is a potentially controversial episode in some way, shape, or form, and this is a topic that I think both of us resonate with, and it's, about being dads in 2022 and co-parenting and everything that kind of falls under that umbrella of being a dad in modern times, because it's definitely not what I remember growing up, but I think you and I are both making the best of our experiences to try to, give our children the best possible upbringing under the conditions and circumstances that are upon us. With that being said,
yeah, let's do this. And another thing, it's not just being dads, but it's being dads to daughters. It's a different animal when, you're trying to raise a daughter and trying to raise them the right way. Not to say that it's any less to raising a son, because obviously being a man and your son looking up to you as like the first,
male,
he sees, that male influence.
Yep.
And it's the same thing for, daughters. How is a guy supposed to act? Oh, there's my dad. He does this, he does that. My first question to you, Dave, is obviously things have changed. And would you say, I'm putting you on the spot here, so no matter how you answer this, people are going to argue with you, but and feel it's controversy. But do you feel that being a dad today is harder than in years past? Say, like, I guess we can say a generation like our parents, from then to now. Do you think it's harder now, or do you think it's easier because of technology and all that stuff?
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty brief. For me specifically, in my experience, it's not, well, let's just put it this way. I talk to my parents all the time about raising kids and, kind of what they went through, and the world has clearly shifted a ton. There are a ton of different factors, influences out there that clearly affect the ability to raise a child. I'm not going to get into the specific details around that, because that opens up Pandora's box for really, really granular level conversation and tons of divisiveness. But
oh yeah,
I will say that it is a challenge today, because I think that my parents did a really good job of instilling values in me, moral values, that have fallen by the wayside these days because of technology. I blame technology in part. The other part is the parents not being responsible in controlling or limiting that technology, that their children have access to. I think that's part of it. So if all the parents were united in that they had technology management, today, I don't think we'd have as many problems. I think we'd still have problems, but if we all got together and said, okay, well, kids should only be on technology a certain amount of time, and there should be limitations as to what they're able to access and get into, I think we'd have a little bit easier of a time. But unfortunately, there really are no limits, and because of that, because of the non-limitation of access to content and media, it's very challenging. I experience challenges on a daily basis with my daughter. She's 6 years old, and some of the things that come out of her mouth surprise me. and it's not just her specifically. She has siblings. She has other siblings that are older, and she's exposed to the stuff that they're getting into, and I'm like, holy shit! Like,
you're preaching to the choir. But there's one thing that stood out to me that I want to go back to and discuss for like a couple minutes. It's you said about the moral values, and I hear more now, and I'm not going to say whether it's right or wrong, but I hear more nowadays where parents are, oh, I'm going to let my child choose or let them, figure this out. Me, I'm a firm believer in God, and that's how I'm raising my daughter, teaching her, just want her to have a relationship. Now, when she becomes 18, and I hope she keeps those values, I hope she continues that, But if she doesn't, then I did what I could. So I'm saying that as, you know, where parents are like, oh, at an early age, I'm going to let my child choose and choose and choose. I feel you still got to mold them. And then when they get to a certain age, and if they start exploring and stuff like that, then, you know, you kind of give them that little leeway to find themselves. So, you know, again, to you, Dave, those morals, how do you feel as far as parents just like
do whatever? Yeah, I don't believe in that, because I wasn't raised that way. And I think that it's a direct correlation to the way in which, you know, I'm trying to raise my daughter and the way in which you're trying to raise your daughter. You grew up in church. I was an altar boy, for people out there that don't know. So there are pictures out there somewhere. I'm not going to say where they are, but they exist. So if that speaks to anything regarding the upbringing of myself and my brother and sort of the moral compass with which we were guided or pointed towards growing up, I think that's a pretty good indicator. I do believe, like you, that a child should have a solid foundation. Now, listen, if the parents don't have a solid foundation, they don't have any business raising kids. That's a whole nother
boom. There you go.
That's a whole nother issue. But if the parents have good, solid morals, values that are, again, morally pointing, the compass is pointing north, more or less. Again, and what morals mean are going to differ from people to people. But I'm just talking about very specific, very in general terms here, like being a good person, not, thinking about committing crimes, not out there robbing people, not out there looking to get over on people, just being a basic human being. If you can't instill that upon your kid, that's a problem. And I think that's where, parents far astray. Now they're letting social media raise the kids, letting social media dictate what moral behavior is. And that's where children are faring astray. So my job as a dad is to rein my daughter in right now as a 6-year-old. And like you said, mold her into what I think is morally correct. And again, people are going to tell us, oh, it's not, that's wrong. It's not.
Yeah. And it's not this, on the outside looking in, people think it's this cult atmosphere. It's not that.
Not at all.
It's just building a solid foundation. And for those who don't believe, and then I'll get off this topic. For those who don't believe, I'm not saying that you're not qualified to raise your child or whatever, but it's just a certain moral foundation that's what we're developing here with our daughters. It's no code. Oh, if you do this, then you look at your 6-year-old. Oh, I'm gonna kick you out my house. Like, no, it's not that. No, like my daughter enjoys everything every other child enjoys. That's 7 years old, or exactly. A little girl.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's talk about our fathers real quick and how you were raised, because obviously we come from two different backgrounds, and how you were raised and how that affected you. And then we'll go and fast forward to now and some of those things, because obviously we know mom had huge impact. Yeah. Like that. There's no question. But
no,
whatever percentage of that is our fathers. And I've never asked you this as long as we've known each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like growing up, how was your dad, and, like the things you learned from him and his influence on you?
Oh, tremendous influence growing up. My dad was, I think, like I said, I'm not trying to say that my upbringing was picturesque, but if it were typecast in a book, we kind of fit that mold in terms of our upbringing, right? White collar, blue collar family, whatever you want to call it, middle class, white American family, parents, mom and dad, 2 kids. That's us, my brother and I, and that's kind of just my family. But my dad specifically played a tremendous role on my upbringing, right? My dad was this big teddy bear, right? That when I was a little kid, this big imposing guy, right? 6'3" plus. When I was younger, he used to grow his beard out, and the guy was like a lumberjack, right? When I was growing up, this big imposing figure, like who the hell's this big giant?
Yeah.
That was our dad. But he was a very affectionate, lovable guy, and he's still like that till this day. He's a a very down to earth, just relaxed type of person, but you would never know that just looking at him. He's just he's this big figure, this larger than life figure. And growing up, I mean, I think as a little boy, like I looked up to him and was like, oh, that I was proud of my dad. That's my dad. I'd have him come to school events. Like if we had Home Depot when I was in kindergarten. I still remember this vividly. I had the guy come in and he was helping all the kids in we built bird houses in the cafeteria when I was in kindergarten. My dad came in and he helped me. We were done in like 10 minutes. Him and I were a cool team, and he's running around to all the other kids. He was like the super dad. Oh, let me help you build this one. Let me help you build that. And I was like, wow, that's my dad. You know?
Yeah, a sense of pride right there,
Oh yeah, seeing your